Okay, so in this final welfare analysis, we talk about positive externalities. And a positive externality is a non-paid for social benefit to society resulting from an economic activity. So for example, a water mill increases the water oxygen content, which increases fish growth. Or another example might be if you have like an apple orchard next to a beekeeping farm. So then the bees can pollinate the apples and at the same time extract nectar, and so that would be a win-win situation. Or other standard examples are like immunization campaigns. If everyone is immunized, that generates positive externalities. So in order to model it, we model a positive externality on the demand side. So let's say, if we stay with the example with the water mill, let's say there is a mill with a bakery where you buy your bread. So this is the demand function for bread. But because you also go there not only to buy bread, but you also enjoy sitting next to the mill on the water and maybe go fishing, you get more to it, so you have an additional benefit. So the true demand function is here. This is the private demand, but I put it maybe here. There's a D private, which is the demand for, let's say, bread from the mill. But here you have D private plus the social benefit. So now we have to start with the social optimum. So we do the welfare analysis for the social optimum. Okay, so we have here again our parameters, and here positive externality. So the social optimum now would be here. So this is the true demand function. And because in economics we care about everything, private benefit, social benefit, so that means that the equilibrium price is 7, or should be 7, and the equilibrium quantity should be 5. So this is what should prevail. So the price is 7, equilibrium quantity, and that's quantity demanded, quantity supplied, quantity turned over. In this case, that's all 5. So now what about the true consumer surplus? So that is this triangle here. So how big is that? So consumer surplus should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times 5, 25 over 2, 12.5. And the true producer surplus should be also 12.5. So total welfare or total surplus should be 25. Okay, so this is what should be the case. So, but now we ask again, but what happens, or what is the case? But what is the case? So let's remove those again. So, but what is the case? So we have again our parameter, and the is scenario. So what is the case? So the market clears here at a price of 6 and a quantity of 4. So the price is only 6 and the quantity turned over is 4. Okay, so that's quantity demanded, quantity supplied, and quantity turned over. So we are here. Okay, so now how big is consumer surplus? So consumer surplus is this triangle up to the quantity of 4. But then there's this rectangle, and this rectangle should be also in the same color. So how big is consumer surplus? So consumer surplus is 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, and then on top we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 times 4, 16 over 2, 8. So consumer surplus is actually 16. And that includes the social benefit of 4 times 2. So that is included. So that is basically 8 plus 8. 8 from the private consumption of the bread plus 8 from the 4 times 2, the social benefit. And producer surplus is again this blue triangle, which is 8. So total welfare or total surplus is only 24. So now we can see that the deadweight loss is this triangle here. This used to be at the price of 7 and 5, that all used to be still producer surplus and consumer surplus. So this little triangle here, which is so that is the deadweight loss of 1. And so what happens is that the deadweight loss in a positive externality, deadweight loss in positive externality results from producing too little of a good thing. So the deadweight loss in a positive externality results from producing too little of a good thing. In the case of a negative externality, we said that we produced too much of a bad thing. And when we looked at the negative externality, we also said that a tax, specifically a PIGU tax, can be used to internalize the negative externality and increase welfare. The same holds for a positive externality. So when we use a subsidy, now not a tax, but if we subsidize, for example, the supply, then we have a so-called Pigou subsidy. So that would be now a Pigou subsidy. Pigou subsidy. So let's say we have for every unit that we produce, so let me just first erase everything here. Okay, so what would happen if the supply were subsidized by 2? So then we would shift the supply down by 2. Okay, so now we would have here, we had the supply based on private cost, private, and this is the supply plus the subsidy. Okay, and this is the private demand. So we have to look now at this demand, because this is the demand for bread. So even though this is the social benefit, people only buy bread. And so what happens is, so people go to the mill with their private demand function, but that is now subsidized. So now we have here the equilibrium price. So again, it's only the private demand that matters. And so now we would produce 5, which is here in the optimum. People would pay now for the bread 5. So that is the price that the people pay, but the producers of the bread with the nice mill next to the river or creek where people also fish, for every unit of bread, let's say, that they produce, they get the subsidy. So this distance here is a subsidy. So the total subsidy would be, I have to draw that somewhere. Yeah, just erase this one here. Okay. Okay, parameter, Pigou subsidy. Okay, so we said the price is 5, but the gross price, the price that the people get is, so that is the price at the cashier if you want to, but the price that the producers get is 5 plus the subsidy, which is now 7. So the producers actually get this price, and this is the price that the producers pay. So now we have already the same price that the producers get. So now how big is the consumer surplus, I mean the producer surplus? So again, the private costs, those are the real costs that the mill faces. So the consumer surplus, let's do first consumer surplus. So the producer surplus is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times 5, 25 over 2, 12.5. Consumer surplus is now this area here. Well, I have to do it again like this, plus this. So this is our consumer surplus. So we have, I just take out quickly the consumer surplus, like the producer surplus. So now we can see consumer surplus is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 12.5, which is 22.5. And again, that includes the social benefit, but now we have to pay the subsidy, so the cost of the subsidy is 5 times 2. So that was again so now let's make that right again. So this area is the subsidy, and that needs to be subtracted because it overlaps with consumer and producer surplus, but it is 5 times 2, so that's 10. So total welfare is the consumer surplus 22.5 plus producer surplus 12.5, so that's 35, but now minus the cost of the subsidy, and we get also 25. Okay. So in sum, whenever we calculate welfare, we sum up consumer surplus plus producer surplus plus tax revenue minus subsidy cost minus social cost plus social benefit. Okay, so this is what we need to look for, and this is how we calculate welfare. And we see that a PIGU subsidy will generate the same welfare as in the social optimum. And yeah, so let's just stop here, and I think you should have a pretty good overview over welfare analysis and the various applications, and you hopefully have seen that this is a very powerful tool. And in the next video we start with another important concept, which is the concept of elasticity.